Yeah, and then you have to find the right family. You have to have the right balance. I know there's families I wouldn't want to work for multiple reasons. And I think your own life experience is going to make this the connection. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work?
Welcome to the Private Chef Podcast, serving the 1%. I'm your host, Hannes Henche, and on our show we speak to the best chefs, how they honed in on their skills to excel in the industry, and what it takes to work as a private chef for some of the most exclusive clients in the world.
I started as an apprentice. I was 16 years old in France, and I entered this, it's called an apprenticeship. You don't really have that in the States. So you basically go work full-time in a restaurant with almost no salary. And you do that for a couple of years, and then you graduate, and then you have a diploma. And then from there, you can start working. And it's exactly what I did. I started working in different restaurants in France. I had to go to I had to do a 1-year military service. And then from there, I worked again in France, in Burgundy. Went to work in London. That was like in the 80s. And then I worked for Paul Bocuse. So I did 2-3 Michelin star restaurants in France, Paul Bocuse and Alain Ducasse. And then after that, I got a job in America with Paul Bocuse in Epcot Center, Walt Disney World, Florida. So there I am, landing in JFK and to Orlando, and then I end up staying.
How did that feel?
Well, it was awesome. I was really excited, because I had traveled before, but I had never traveled to America, so that was my first time. And I was a little bit nervous also, but I already knew people there. So it wasn't like, I was just thrown off the bus. And so it was...
How was your English back then? Were you already kind of fluent from school, or?
No, because actually I didn't learn English in school. I learned German and Italian. Are you from Germany, Austria?
Yes, Germany. Willkommen.
Germany, okay. Oh ja, willkommen, ja, alles gut.
Yeah.
Meine Frau ist von Österreich, if I get to that. But
nice.
I'm trying to relearn German now. The problem is having learned English in between kind of made me forget all my German. But it's coming back. So anyways, so I did speak a little bit of English because I had gone to London, to England, for about 6 months. So it was probably about 1.5 years before. So, I had some basic stuff, but I was far from being fluent. And then, I learned quick. I was only 23 at the time. And then I worked for Disney World, not very long actually. It turned out not to be what I had expected. So I left that and went.
So Paul Bocuse, he connected you with Disney World, or he had a restaurant back then in Disney World?
He had a restaurant. He was the co-owner of the restaurant inside the French Pavilion in Epcot Center. And Roger Verger and Gaston Lenoir were the two other chefs. And, they were doing very well. It was a gold mine, really. But I didn't like the food. I didn't like I'm not a big company kind of guy anyway, so... it didn't work out.
Yeah.
So then I found a small French restaurant in Orlando, Florida, that sponsored me for the green card. Visa. Visa. It was back then. It was a little bit more complicated, but yes and no. But I already had a social security number, so I could stay and work. I just could not leave the country. So I ended up staying for like 5 years before I could go back home, which was a little bit hard. And then eventually I got the interview in Paris with the American consulate, and then I got the green card. I had 5 with a lawyer and everything. So, but you had to wait. You had a priority date with the Labor Department. It was really kind of complicated. But anyway, eventually I got the green card. And then I left that restaurant because I had worked 6 years for him. And then I started working in some other places. I opened up a restaurant for someone in Orlando. It was called Le Provence, and it was actually the first time in my life that I was not working for a chef owner. So it was not like I was cooking somebody else's cuisine. So I designed the menu, everything, the stuff, and I was really excited. But I just worked so hard for that place. I ended up staying there about 4 years, I think. And I lost you. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh yeah,
I'm
okay.
here. Even if I freeze, I'm still there.
Okay, it's because the image went dark, but it's okay. So anyway, so I did that, and then after that, I went to work for a couple other places. And by that time, I was kind of ready. I was itching to open my own business. But I didn't want to open a restaurant because I had young kids at home, and I didn't want to, be home late every night. So I made the crazy decision to open a wholesale bakery, which was really crazy because it's not something. I mean, I knew how to bake, I knew a lot of things, but I still had a lot to learn. So it was really hard in the beginning, but I managed to stay open almost 10 years. I started with almost nothing, built it up. But the problem in 2008, we had the financial crisis, the subprime crisis, which really hit Florida, pretty hard. So that was kind of like the last nail in the coffin. I mean, I had just bought 2 big ovens. I couldn't stay afloat. So I decided to close the business. And then I went to work for a big catering company in Orlando, which was great as a pastry chef. But the problem, they also got hurt by the recession. So they start cutting people's salaries. And within 6 months of my working over there, they cut my salary twice. And I was like, well, this isn't good. And actually, I was almost making less than on my first job when I came to the United States 20 years prior to that. So then I say, well, this is it. I gotta do something. So then I start looking on the internet, Craigslist, and I found a job in California in a bakery. They had a cute website, blah blah blah. And so next thing you know, I'm in California just by myself, no wife at the time. I mean, the wife stayed behind. So it was just me, tried it out, and then I ended up staying, found another job, moved the whole family. That was in 2010. Work for another bakery for about a year or so. Then I landed a job as an instructor in a cooking school. It was called at the time it was called the French Culinary Institute. They had one in New York, and they were opening another one in California. They were actually taking over a school that was going bankrupt. So I got that job, and I was teaching first culinary, but then I got to teach pastry as well. And I stayed there for, I think, 8 or 9 years. I loved the job. It was really great.
Did you enjoy that experience?
Oh, very much so, very much so. He actually he taught me how to teach, but really how to rethink, of my craft, how to put myself in people's shoes and thinking, because, as a chef, even sometimes I would do a demo or something, and then next thing you know, I already did something. My hands are faster than my brain. And the student would, oh, chef, what did you just do? Oh, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I had to go back and kind of re-explain or sometimes redo it because I was just moving too fast. So, but it was great. It really, really helped me a lot. Taught me how to be a little bit more patient, I guess. And then, but I always loved to communicate, to teach, to coach. I always had those comments even when I was working in the industry. People were like, "Oh, it's nice working with you, this and that," because I kind of took the time to explain, things to people, not just well, because that's just the way it is, kind of answer. So it was great. But unfortunately, the school closed. The owner of the school, Dorothy Hamilton, she passed away like a few years before in a tragic car accident. And from that point on, it was, everything was kind of floating. And and then eventually they closed the school for whatever reason, a lack of enrollment and other things, which kind of really caught all of us by surprise because I wasn't looking. I was fine. I liked it because when I was teaching in the kitchen, I was pretty much my own boss. I did. I didn't have anybody breathing down my neck. As long as I met, all the guidelines and this and that, I was okay. So then I had now I'm over 50 years old, and I find myself looking for another job, and it's kind of tough. So I'm trying different things, and then Barry, I want to do private chef. So I was doing small jobs on the side. I think it's called personal chef, where you actually cook food somewhere and then you bring it to people's house, but all packed in to-go containers. So I was doing this, but it was just not enough. So I did go to work, and then the school, and then kind of COVID hit. So that was a big drawback. So I ended up working. I was changing job like 7 times within 2 years, and it was not private chef. This was everything. I actually worked in a bakery for a while, replacing a chef. Before there was another chef coming from France. They had lost their chef. That was last year, so I worked there for a few months. I did door-to-door sales for a produce delivery company, organic. That was fine. I did it for just a couple of months. That was like 2020, so right at the midst of the COVID. And then what else did I did for a little retirement home. I worked for a restaurant also, but my heart, I guess I just didn't want to do that anymore. So I really then I finally found a job as a private chef with Craigslist, because the problem with private chef, and then is references. Okay, if you don't have references, it's really hard to get in. And somehow I found this job. It was not full time. It was only 4 days a week. This family in Atherton here and in California, they hired me. They gave me a chance. Which was great. But it turned out that it wasn't really what I expected, because it was kind of weird, because they had 2 homes. And I would cook in one home, the old house, what they called it. I was by myself all day in a mansion. And then at 5 o'clock, I would bring the food in Tupperwares and containers to the other house, which was right next to it. And I would just leave it there on the counter, explain them what it was, this and that. And then I would just walk away. So, of course, as a chef, you feel like, what are they going to do it? First of all, they didn't want to use the microwave because it supposedly kills the nutrients. So, like I'm serving in the winter, I'm serving beef goulash, right? I mean, you know what it is. It has to be piping hot, right? And of course, by the time it got there, the time they ate it, it was tepid at its best. And the next day, the principal, sends me a text or tells me whatever. The goulash didn't sit well. I'm like, I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, well, if you had warmed it, it would have been much better. I mean, you don't want to eat a goulash that's cold. That's terrible, right? And I made spätzle and everything. So I ended up working for about 6 months for this family, and then I went to an agency. Finally, because I knew already some people. I knew a headhunter, but this was really an established agency, which having now that experience as a private chef, helped me really get in. And they found me They found me right away a family that just wanted, a part-time chef. And shortly after that, a second one. So I was working for two families part-time. One was 3 days, the other one 2 nights. And it worked out fine. One of the family was vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free. So there was a bit of a challenge because I had to do separate dishes. But I like that fact
no more
that
Spätzle mit Gulasch here.
No more plastic. Yeah, no more. Well, glass containers. My bad. So yeah, serving the food is really important because then you feel like you have the control all the way to the end. And if it's something they need something, you're right there. Say, okay, can I have this? Boom, boom, boom. Can I have more sauce? Can I have, whatever? You are here, and I like to serve too, so I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. Go on.
You just described the kind of the reason why we have this podcast, because, it's for you to get into the private chef industry. It was, despite all of your experience, you worked for some of the best chefs in the world. You worked for Paul Bocuse, Alain Ducasse. You've had your own business. You've had bakery experience, pastry experience, teaching experience. And yet it took you some time to figure out how to actually be placed in the private industry. And that always blows my mind. There are people who are so highly skilled and highly talented and have the persona or character to work in somebody's home. And yet sometimes the agencies give them a hard time because there is no reference.
Yeah, it's hard to once you get into that circle, you're okay. But it's really hard. Yeah, and then you have to start small. That's what my personal chef thing, where I was bringing food to this family, was already a step in the right direction. But on and all, so the school closed in 2019. So it took me 2.5 years to really get a full-time position as a private chef. So it's not, and I'm going to say also, as far as being a private chef, it's a whole different ball game, way of thinking. You could be the best chef in the world, but there's many other aspects that are involved that you don't really need when you work in a restaurant. And I think one of them is being able to, first is how to be quiet. Be quiet when you work. Be clean, and I'm going to emphasize that word. Cleanliness is everything, because I've known some people that like do caterings and things, and there's one lady. Actually, she was a student of mine, and she started her own little catering thing, and she's a little bit, I don't want to say a prima donna, and she goes, I don't clean. And I'm like, well, you know what? If you don't clean somebody's home, you'll never get called again. Okay, that's plain and simple. They're not going to say it in front of you, but they're going to go, look at the mess that the chef left, and we're not calling him ever. And that's it. That was your one chance. It's gone. You blew it. And then cleaning is it's every day. So when I work for Bocuse, we clean the kitchen, the floor 4 times a day. So I'm used to clean. I don't mind cleaning after myself. Okay. So I just keep things.
Yeah, that's very different. What you and me went through in Europe, the apprenticeship, and also,
totally.
We didn't have anybody cleaning our floors in Germany. We had one dishwasher, but he was only doing the dishes, and we were cleaning the floors and the hoods and everything.
Yes.
I was very surprised when I came to New York that we didn't have to do that.
Here people don't want to do it, but Paul Bocuse, every Monday morning, it was a slow day. The entire brigade, we cleaned, like you say, from the ceiling, the hoods, with everybody. And there was no, if you're trying to slack off and hide somewhere, if the chef found you, it was not going to be good. You would get back to there really quick. And it was the entire brigade, the sous chef, chef de partie, commis, everybody. There's no questions asked. But like you say, when I came here, I was like, what is this? And then, I found, anyway, it's a different system. But we Europeans are used to this. So, it's just, it's built in our DNA, if you would, right? Work quietly. It's important. The family that I work for, they have a young, toddler, and sometimes, he sleeps and stuff. You don't want to wake him up. You don't want to be banging pots and slamming doors and stuff like that. You're kind of walking on eggs. Don't really speak unless spoken to. I mean, I've worked for different families. Sometimes it's really tense, like the principals are just stressed and busy, and you want to stay out of their way as much as you can. This family that I'm working for now, they're a bit more easygoing, so we have a good communications. But you have to be able to read the people. You see, okay, now this is not the time to ask this or come up with something. You just stay back and then wait for an opportunity to to say whatever you want to say. And what else would I say? The private chef. So the food also, the menus. You have to be flexible. You have to be. I keep a roster of all the dishes that I make. I make comments, so I can go back to it. And because we forget, what did I serve 6 months ago, and did the missus like it or not? So you got to keep track of this. We chefs from restaurants, tend to cook for like an army, right? We used to cook for 20 people. Now I'm cooking for 2. It's a bit of an adjustment. So now I'm going to the fish market and I say, I want a 6-ounce piece and I want a 4-ounce piece. So one small, one big. They look at me. I'm like, sorry, this is just the way it is. And because the diet, they don't want to eat too much, and stuff like that.
This is a very, very interesting point you're making, because my boss always asks me, he's like, can you get wholesale pricing? And I'm like, you want 6 ounces, 4 ounces? Like, it's not wholesale, okay? You're buying very small quantities. I cannot go to a wholesaler. Yeah, like maybe if we start having a big party, I can buy a case of something and we can start talking about wholesale. But, those like homey quantities, you don't get a preference on that.
Yeah, that's strange, because usually with all the private family that I work for, most of them, price is no object. It's not like you don't go to shop at the bargain store. They want the best of the best. So you're going to farmers market. You're going to here in the Bay. There's a supermarket, a high-end supermarket chain called Traeger's. That's where I do all my shopping. It costs twice as what it costs elsewhere, but it is what it is. Yeah. You have to think of convenience.
I mean, they do want the best, but they like to get it. They like to get it on sale. See if I can buy the best for sometimes a different price.
Sometimes you get a deal on something. The other day I got something. I forgot what it was, but they were happy. I'm like, hey, got to do that for free or something. Another thing I would say for a private chef to be, if you ever get a call for a tryout, is and that's going to sound really silly, but have a pair of indoor shoes, okay? Because as a chef, I don't want to work bare feet or just with socks, right? I have to have shoes when I'm cooking, just for safety reasons, my back, okay? But most of the homes you go to, you can't wear the same shoes you're wearing outside. So you bring another pair of shoes that you only wear inside. And
you're making a good point here. I saw a guy trialing once in a home, it was a regular floor, and he rolled in like full on restaurant gear. He had this really solid black shoes and he came with this big bag full of equipment. And I'm like, I'm not sure what you're rolling into, but this is a little bit different here. It was interesting, to say the least. But that's a really good tip. Have a different set of shoes, because all of us wear wear kind of more like shoes that are applicable to the environment there.
Yeah, I mean, I have to have enclosed toes. You know, if I spill something, I don't want it to fall on my toes, whether it's oil or boiling water, whatever. It never happens, but just in case, you know.
Yeah.
Wear an apron. Wear an apron. Just you're not doing a show, trying to look good and stuff. So the shoes. Equipment.
Okay.
I keep a lot of equipment in my truck, so I don't come with a boatload of stuff. I mean, I have a small set of knives, but truthfully, I only use like three or four on a daily basis, and that's all you need.
Yeah, same here.
Don't bring a truckload worth of stuff because they might go like, oh, what is this? So it gets in the way. And then, a lot of times you go to people's kitchen and you look around. It's like, well, what's all this stuff? So before you move anything, just ask, okay, do you mind if blah, 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 I put this here? And, they're always going to say yes, but you have to ask. Go ahead.
I think you're touching up on some important things here. Like, for example, in a trial, I think to roll in with as little as possible to make it happen leaves a better impression as coming in, I don't know, like the army with containers of equipment. Like, in my experience, it always showed a certain level, of care. And one of the things I'm also saying is, try to find out what kind of quantities you need for the trial itself. Don't overbuy like crazy. Sometimes I see chefs, I don't know what they're doing. They're bringing like 4 times the quantities of what they actually need to do the food or cook the food, and then there's like multiple pounds of leftovers of protein and maybe vegetables and fruits. And that just doesn't look good because some of the principles, they pick up on those things.
Oh yeah.
Some don't. Some never touch the kitchen. Some never come to the fridge, but some do. And they pick up on those things. Like if yeah.
No, you're right. It's
I would say, yeah.
Yeah, don't take
ahead,
anything.
Chef.
Don't take anything for granted. Be sure that you're always very honest, because sometimes you may be tempted to. Whatever, just small things, trust is everything for them. So they have to be able to trust you. So you might be exposed to lavish lifestyle, they may be throwing money around like you won't believe it. Yet it's not your money. Just don't do anything. And then if you want to eat something, you usually have to ask, they'll give you permission. But don't think because, you cook extra of this, you're entitled to something. You're not entitled to anything. They give you a big salary. Because, there's sometimes, and then you have to find the right family. You have to have the right balance, I know there's families I wouldn't want to work for multiple reasons. And I think your own life experience is going to make this the connection. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? And then the other thing is, I'll say is when you have to be ready, to be a private chef. Let's say when I was 30 years old. There's no way I could have been a private chef because I was too ambitious, too nervous. I wanted to be the best chef in town. I wanted the glory, the limelight. Now I'm a private chef. I don't take pictures. I don't post anything. I'm in the shade, and I'm fine with it. I'm at the end of my career. Let the young chefs now have all the glory and limelight they want. I'm okay without it. Okay. But 30 years ago, there's no way. I was too, I was just too nervous. I I could not have worked just and cook for 2 people. That was unthinkable. Now, 40 some years into my career, what do I have to prove? Nothing. So I'm fine with this. It's a steady family. It's a steady schedule. They pay me well. What else can I ask? And but again, be careful. And again,
It's
I
funny
always say
that
the
you
younger chefs, I would say that the social media things, you just can't, because I know I have some friends that also, and they post everything they do. I'm like, be careful, because you sign an agreement, a privacy agreement, and and actually, you see, for example, they have there's nothing to do with the food, but they have this family that I work for. They have this young toddler. He's a year old. He's really adorable, really cute. And he loves me. So he always comes to me and hugs me in my legs, wants to be in my arms, and because he wants to see what I'm doing, right? Which is normal. And then I was telling my wife about, this cute child. But she's never seen it. She met the principal once, but the baby was asleep. So, and she wanted to see, she'd like to see him. But of course, so I asked the principals, I said, do you mind if I take a picture of your child, and I'm just going to show it to my wife? I'm not going to post it on anything. And they said, yeah, sure. She actually took the picture of me holding the baby in my arms. But that was, that was crazy. I'm just going to move a little bit here. Hopefully, you can still hear me. I don't want to, because this gentleman is here. So I'm going to move right here. So anyway, and I think you just say that, but yeah. So I don't know about you, but me, the phone, the social media thing, it's not really built in my DNA, right? Sorry, it's not.
That's before your time.
Before my time. So I don't. So I do take pictures of the food, but for my own records. So that way I can go back and say, this is what I did, yeah. And then sometimes if I forget to write down what I did, I go back in my phone. I'll say, so Thursday, this is what I did, then I can write it down. And that's really the only reason. But trying to emulate myself by showing off, this is not what it's about. It's not about you. You're not trying to become a star here. You be a star within this family, within perhaps the private chef circle, but that's the end of it. Okay, I did a tryout last year for a family that had around the clock armed security, a guy with a gun. Okay, so it tells you the level of of wealth, and so you cannot say anything about this family ever. I mean, you can't even disclose their name. I mean, you walk out and it's like, I just work for a family there, and that's it. You cannot say anything else. So forget about posting anything. No, I mean, not even a breadcrumb, So yeah. So that would be my advice.
I mean, that's really part of. Yeah, that's really the heart of what we're doing is trust. And, if we don't adhere to that level of privacy, I would say we have a very short career in this particular industry.
Totally.
Because it's all about that. It's like maintaining that standard. And what you said about the limelight, it hits home quite, because just yesterday I had a conversation with one of my friends. And I asked him if he would like to go into private, because I could easily connect him. He's super talented. He worked at one of the best restaurants in Switzerland for 7 years as a sous chef, so he could easily do it. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, I want to have a Michelin star in my own name.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
totally.
that's, he wants to be the young chef that you described.
Yeah.
He's not yet ready to just be the star of one family.
No, not the first, number one. And also I want to say, and I mentioned life experience, but professional experience. You have to have quite a repertoire under your belt. I mean, are you from Germany? I'm from France. I can just go and say, well, I only know French cooking, or you German cooking, because after 2 weeks they're gonna go like, okay, well, can you cook Asian? Can you cook this? And then you cannot say no. So you're gonna have to think outside the box and make sure that you at least you have a certain level of comfort, so you can do certain things outside your comfort zone. I know some Asian dishes. I'm not an expert by any means. Everything European I can do pretty much with my eyes closed. I can do baking. I can do a lot of things, but you have to be flexible. You have to, and then they change. You may have planned this thing for tonight, and then they come to you to say, well, we had a big lunch. We're just gonna have this. Boom, yes, and right away you have to be able to, change directions and adapt to their needs. You cannot go like, oh man, I bought this already, blah blah blah. No, that's not what they want to hear. They want to hear is yes, of course. That's what they want to hear. Okay, now my cut is coming. I'm sorry. This is part of being on Zoom. Anyways, so yeah.
Yeah, it's all there.
So yeah. What else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's really about satisfying them in their personal experience. It's not so much, and some chefs, especially coming from restaurant, might forget about that. It's whatever they would like is what should happen ideally. I mean, occasionally, it might be a give and take, but most of the time it's like, this is what we want, and that's what should be delivered, despite maybe the effort or the preparation we made in a different direction.
Yeah, like a lot of chefs, a lot of cooks, they have to have music when they work. Well, forget about that. Here in a private chef's home, I mean, you're not putting on your own music, and maybe if you work by yourself, you can have these if you really need it. But I would advise against it, because they might be trying to reach out to you one way or another, and then if you cannot hear when they call out your name, or send you a text or whatever way they try to communicate with you, so don't do that. I mean, unless you work, I don't know, depending on the setup, if the kitchen is remote, and you could do it, but again, just be prepared. To be able to be self-sufficient and not needing all these things that supposedly make you work faster or better or whatever. So because that was and you came from Europe, and that was the other thing too. When I came to this country, a radio in the kitchen, I was like, what is this? I had never seen that over there ever. It was a big no-no. And then here you have this blasting radio, and especially during service. So I remember I had a few arguments here and there throughout my career about especially when you have a back kitchen.
It was really interesting. When I came, we were not allowed to have phones in the kitchen in Germany whatsoever, and neither when I was in Spain. There were no phones ever in the kitchen. And then when I came here, and I worked at Danielle, so it was French, heavily French, but people had their phones in the kitchen. I was like, what? And then during the day, even there, we were allowed to listen to the radio, not during the service, but the rest of the day we had the radio going. So it was quite different than the very strict German kitchen that I started in, where you literally had no entertainment, no radio, no phone whatsoever. It was just work. And then coming to the S, and now it's unthinkable to tell people to leave their phone outside the kitchen. It's like impossible.
But it's funny, because now some chefs, some restaurants, they actually want their cooks to take pictures and put it on social media to create more buzz. So it's a whole different ways of thinking and of operating. And Yeah, I'm okay with it. I mean, I understand. I mean, that's just the way things work nowadays. Problem is me. I have an Instagram account. I'm never on it. I never use it. I'm just. I guess I'm lazy. It's just. I don't. I just don't get it. I just have no patience for that. So.
You're not lazy because you do keep track of all your dishes.
I'm not lazy.
I think doing the rooster that you're doing is more work than keeping an Instagram
again, I don't
account.
have that reflex, built in me where, I have to post everything that I do every 10 seconds. So, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, because I couldn't hear you.
Yes, I'm here. It's just the video is frozen.
Yeah, the connection isn't really all that good here. I'm sorry. We have I'm in a part of town where we don't have the best coverage, and then here in California in the morning it's overcast also. So I don't know. Just signal is not as good, but
yeah. Well, I think we got a lot in.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks Chef Bruno for sharing your entire career, your experience, your insights on what it takes to be in the industry, and giving us some of your time.
Well, my pleasure entirely, and hopefully this will help some up and coming private chefs with their career making decisions and making sure they helping them be prepared when.
Thank you for joining us at the Private Chef podcast. If you know any highly skilled chefs that want to take their life to the next level, make sure to share this podcast with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe and check out our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.